Okay, so what if the very things you've been taught to fear are actually the exact tools for your own liberation? We're going to dig into a really provocative argument today. It claims that some beliefs are actually designed to disconnect people from their own power, systematically. So let's get right into what this viewpoint has to say.
And right out of the gate, the source makes this huge claim. The idea here is that certain spiritual tools, they haven't just been misunderstood, they've been intentionally misrepresented. I mean, that's a really bold place to start, and it completely sets the stage for a different way of looking at all this.
Okay, so the claim is that we've been taught to fear certain things. But what are we actually talking about? What are these tools? Let's break down the specific practices that this argument says have been, deliberately painted as dangerous.
So, we're talking about practices like these: astrology, crystals, soul contracts, and even things like meditation and energy work. A lot of these are tools people use for self-discovery nowadays, right? But the whole point here, the assertion, is that they've been systematically framed as something you should be afraid of.
And just think about the language used to shut them down. This viewpoint really zeroes in on these supercharged labels, demonic, witchcraft. The argument is that these words, they aren't just descriptions, they're basically emotional weapons, right? Designed to make you just dismiss the whole thing without even thinking about it.
All right, so if these tools are wrapped up in so much fear, how do we even begin to see them differently? Well, the author offers up a whole new way to think about it, and they use a really simple but powerful analogy to explain.
In this question, right here, this is the key to the whole argument. It completely shifts our focus away from the tool itself and puts it on the intention of the person using it. Is a thing, an object, inherently good or evil? Or does it all depend on who's wielding it? And here's that analogy, a simple hammer, right? It's a totally neutral, everyday object that we all get. It doesn't have any morality baked into it. It's just a tool. And that's what makes it the perfect way to unpack this whole idea.
So here's where the analogy really clicks when you see it side by side. The fear view says the hammer itself is the dangerous thing, that it has power over you. But this other viewpoint completely reframes that. It says, no, the hammer is neutral. It's just a tool that helps you build something, that amplifies your own ability.
And this is the real takeaway. The power isn't in the hammer. The hammer's just a channel. You have power through it. See the difference? The tool just amplifies the intention of whoever is holding it.
Okay, so tools don't have power, they just reflect yours. Got it. Now, with that idea locked in, let's take this hammer analogy and apply it back to those spiritual practices we were talking about.
So, from this point of view, what are spiritual tools, really? They're not some kind of external force. They're just neutral amplifiers. A good way to think of them is like bridges. Bridges connecting your everyday seen world to your inner self, to what this source calls the divine.
Let's see how this reframes each tool. Let's start with astrology. The argument is it doesn't lock you into some fixed fate. Not at all. Instead, it's more like a mirror, just reminding you of the potential you already have inside you.
And crystals, same idea. They're not these magical batteries that just hand you power. The argument is that they just resonate with, they just kind of amplify the power that's already inside of you. And so contracts, instead of being these scary, binding things you can't escape, they're seen more like a roadmap for understanding, a way for you to see the lessons you wanted to learn, which in turn gives you the clarity you need to be free.
Which brings us to the real core of this whole claim, the why. I mean, why would anyone want people to be afraid of these tools if all they do is act like neutral amplifiers for what's already inside us?
Yeah, that's the central question this source dives into next. If these tools are just harmless bridges to our own soul, why on earth would they be labeled as dangerous? The argument made here is that the motive has zero to do with protecting you spiritually and everything to do with control. Okay, let's really break this down. The argument lays out this kind of four-step process for control. Step 1, make people afraid of their own power. Step 2, cut them off from their own divinity. Step 3, that leads to dependency, right? They need someone else, some outside authority, to save them. And the final result, step 4, a system where you can be controlled.
So the end game here, according to this line of thinking, is a system that literally thrives on people being disconnected. It needs people to feel powerless. It needs them to be constantly looking outside of themselves for permission to feel whole.
But what's the alternative to all that control? I mean, what happens when someone decides to reject the fear and plug back into their own power? Well, according to this viewpoint,
That's when you get the awakened human.
And you can see the huge difference between these two paths. On one side, you have the person who's disconnected, who feels like they need saving. But on the other, you have the person who trusts their own connection, and because of that, they become free. They don't need saving.
And that is exactly why this source claims the awakened human is seen as a threat. Because think about it, a person who is free, who is sovereign, they don't need to be saved. And if everyone started trusting themselves like that, well, the argument goes that any system built on dependency and control would just collapse.
And this is where the source really flips the whole definition of evil upside down. It says evil isn't the tools. It's not the astrology, not the crystals, not the hammer. What's really evil, it argues, is any world, any system that deliberately keeps people blind to their own light. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative question. The implication here is that once you see this, you can't really go back. It's a